Hey guys, Mike with Become the Night. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Music Snob. I know it has been a long time since I've done this. I never wanted this series to go away completely, but trying to stick to it every week, I think I was starting to get burnt out on it. In this show, I post a question sticker to Instagram, and then I field your guys' questions. I'll answer a couple of them on my Instagram story, and then a couple of them I will take here. I really liked a lot of the questions that you guys sent in this time around. I was actually really impressed. There's some very, very good questions on there. I was like, wow, this is probably the best one we've done so far. If you want to get in on the action, follow me at Become the Night. What is the science behind guitar solo face? I have no idea what the science is, but if I had to take a stab at it, there is absolutely some innate connection between the guitar, the player's emotions, and then how those emotions are expressed through the face. I talk a lot about tension and release, and sometimes as tension is being released, it's almost like you're getting the world's greatest massage, or you're just like scratching the world's greatest itch. You're just like, oh man. That's why you get this really tense face, like you're John Madden and someone handed you a Dr. Pepper, but you thought it was iced tea, and you're like, whoa, whoa. Sorry, stealing that joke from Frank Caliendo. Give credit where credit's due. But yeah, I mean, as you're building up this tension, doing whatever runs you're doing, there are notes where that tension is released, and it's almost like a, like I just freaking nutted, you know, that type of thing. So I don't know what the science is on that, but that's just kind of my intuition as far as I think that's what that relationship is. It's something very carnal. Like, I've always described the guitar as, like, if you really master it, it's another organ of your body. It's not an instrument that you play, it's merely a further extension of yourself that almost becomes one with you. How do you define a good song? Man, that is like the key question, isn't it? Obviously, there is a lot of music that is left up to subjectivity, although I like to make the claim that there's a decent amount of objectivity in there as well that needs to be addressed. It's a really deep question that honestly I could make an entire series on, because there's so many different factors, and a part of it is social subjectivity, but then you could even say, man, there's this really good song that people don't really understand in the time in which it's been released, and posthumously that artist is claimed as proclaimed as a genius. Just offhand here, one of the biggest factors that goes into a song being really good is good craftsmanship. So what does good craftsmanship mean? That means that the song, all of its elements work well together to elicit the effect that the artist was intending, or elicit an effect far beyond what the artist had ever anticipated. There is something so innate about music in humanity that it's really hard to describe, because you could say something that's extraordinarily simple is a good song. And by the way, I'm looking at this just from a musical aspect, not necessarily a lyrical aspect. And then you have really, really, really complex pieces that also can get across an amazing point as well. And you have songs on both sides of those spectrums that just suck. And then you can even take a different school of thought. Maybe every song is good and audience members all just lack the understanding necessary to appreciate it. There's also that school of thought. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but not to take away the necessity for people to grow in their understanding both in music and in life. Do you think modern pop will be remembered as classics in the future? Most of them, no. I think the last decade of pop will have the least amount of classics, in quotes, of the last couple of generations of pop music. I mean, if you even go back to way older times when pop was even rock and roll, or more like country or disco or stuff like that, most of those songs are forgotten. Like, no, as much as everyone is crying their stupid makeup-filled eyes out over Thank You Next right now, I don't think that's going to be remembered as a classic. I think that it spoke to a very specific point in time that will be forgotten, because honestly, it's not a well-written song in my opinion. The melody is extremely understated. Maybe the message has something going for it. I don't know. I don't really care, because the entire song just seems awfully lame to me. Maybe the whole point was it was supposed to be understated, but I mean, like, at that point, you're basically trying to focus more on the poetry of it than you are the music of it, in my opinion. There isn't enough that's memorable and substantial to carry people through multiple phases of their lives in most modern pop hits that are going to be able to be held onto by later generations and by the current generation. They will move past it. How do you write lyrics so well, and how can I do the same? First of all, thank you. Definitely gotten a lot better at writing lyrics. If you look at my first release, those lyrics were pretty cringy. I'd say the last couple of releases that I've done, the lyrics were significantly better and actually had some decent messaging to them, and were definitely more poetic. A big part of how I improve my lyrics over time is, one, just becoming more mature. Another big thing is increasing your wit. Yes, some people do come by wit naturally, but I did not used to naturally have wit because my confidence wasn't there. And then I started watching actually a lot of videos of Groucho Marx, believe it or not. Groucho Marx is a very old comedian. He's obviously dead now. But he was a master of wit, like one of the original masters of wit when TV and movies became a thing. The guy was so on fire, but he used his wit as a defense mechanism because he was a very damaged human being. And I watched a lot of his videos after I'd moved here to Nashville, and I just thought to myself, like, you know, I want to have that type of wit. The guy is so likable, even though he's such a dick, but he's just hilarious. You know, no one takes him seriously. So I worked on it. You have to work on it. You have to practice it. I don't know the best way to practice wit, but increasing your wit is going to make writing lyrics not only much more effective language-wise, but it's also going to make it quicker in the writing process. Also, analyze poetry and think about what makes it more impactful. The biggest problem that I see with a lot of amateur lyricists is they do a whole lot of telling, not showing. What's a way of building imagery that makes a concrete idea in someone's head, but builds a deeper subtext to what's actually being talked about, or maybe multiple levels of subtext to what's actually being talked about, so that it has more impact on the listener? That is literally the idea of wit, saying a whole lot very effectively with the least amount possible. Do you have to be really good at an instrument, example, playing for 10 plus years to get into a music college? No. You just need to meet the minimum requirements that they ask for to get into any music program. Having said that, would I recommend going to music college? Not necessarily, no. It's excellent having a mentor. I highly recommend getting one of those. You can get the same effect out of getting private tutors or even learning for yourself online as you would going to college. It's going to require a little bit more discipline on your part, but it's also going to be a shit ton cheaper, and it's most likely going to get you further along your path, and you have more individualized learning as opposed to having to learn in a group setting. There's a ton of advantages. Ideally, if you want to do this right, it's still going to cost you money. It's just going to cost you a shit ton less money. Did you ever hear bad playing from John Petrucci? Actually, yes. Last time Dream Theater came through Nashville, which was last month, I got to see them live for my first time ever. They came out to Untethered Angel, and right when they go to the riff, right before the verse starts, the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, it was so loose. I was actually taken aback. I was like, whoa, am I about to be really disappointed right now? They tightened it up very quickly after, which makes me think it's probably just a monitor issue for John, because he had two big monitors in front of him, but I would not be surprised if he just had a monitor in his ear, and those are really just to put his feet on. But yeah, that's the only time I've heard any bad playing from John is then, and again, I don't think it was his fault. Will there be any music videos for the album singles, if there's any? I'm on a tight enough schedule as it is to get this darn thing done with the limited time that all of us have to actually put this together, that I don't anticipate there will be any music videos up front. I wish I had both the time and money to do that. There may be music videos after the fact, we'll see. Would I like to? I would absolutely love to. I just don't think it would honestly be worth it up front, or maybe it would be, I don't know. But we have to get this damn thing done, and at this rate, it might have to be shrunk into a long EP as opposed to a full-length album, but we'll see. And if it is a full-length album, it's probably going to be a little bit shorter, just because we haven't had a whole lot of time to write. We've been more focused on trying to get stuff practiced down so that we can actually start playing out. Did any of your teachers like the music that you are into? So it depends on what you mean by teachers. Any of the people who have taught me guitar, which is like two guys for like a little while. Eric Wersing was my guitar teacher when I was a teenager for like a month or two, and he actually helped develop what would become my love for prog. He's the guy that introduced me to Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Yngwie Malmsteen. My guitar teacher, who I had in college for classical guitar, which I absolutely completely did not take advantage of those lessons. I was such a fucking lazy person. We shared a love for some classical music and maybe some jazz, but he really was not into metal very much. Now, Bob, who I consider to be a mentor or teacher, he was the guy who I recorded my first album with. He actually was into prog. That's one of the reasons why we kind of stuck together, is like, oh, we like a lot of the same music, and we have a lot of the same ideas about music. So yeah. Is there anything about having a regular job that you miss? You know, the whole grass is greener type of thing. I know in the long run, I made the best decision by doing this and going off on my own. The two things I can think of offhand are, I miss being around people all the time. The only time I really get out to see people is when I'm going to either an event, but most of those events involve alcohol and spending money, and I'm just like, I wish I could just not have to do that. Or if Ryan hosts a party at his place, or if it's band practice. So yeah, I kind of miss just being able to hang out with people on what were smoke breaks and stuff, you know, and doing lunches, or just pissing off, whatever, you know, just having a good time with people that you work with. That, and I miss a certain amount of the predictability, just because it is stressful trying to come up with what the hell am I doing this week, what the hell am I doing next week, and trying to manage your entire schedule by yourself, especially as movable as everything is. That's part of also what I love about doing this, is because my schedule is so movable. It works a lot better with my personality, where there's not a lot of repetition, but at the same point, it also does increase stress, even though I get more fulfillment out of it, if that makes any sense. Is it better to be great at one instrument or good at two? It really depends what your musical goals are. If your goal is to be a producer or an engineer, being good at as many instruments as you can and understanding them and understanding how they work so that you understand the players you're working with is the best option. If your goal is to be an amazing guitar player, it doesn't matter if you know how to play piano. We've seen you shred, sing, and play bass, but can you do anything cool on the drums? I used to be able to know how to play some stuff on the drums. Believe it or not, I think I might have said this before, I learned how to play drums via Guitar Hero World Tour, or whatever the hell it was, and then after that on Guitar Hero Metallica. Yes, I learned from the School of Lars. There was a point where I taught myself a pretty close approximation to the beginning portion of Metropolis Part 1, right before it goes into the bridge. I had almost that whole thing down. I'm so out of practice on the drums now, it would take me a while to start getting some of that coordination back, but it's probably like riding a bike. But if I had to sit behind a kit right now and do anything cool on the drums, no, nothing cool would come out. What type of strings do you play? So I play Not Even Slinkies by Ernie Ball. These are 12 to 56 gauge strings. Those are on Sophia by Universum. Those are tuned down to C standard, and then every once in a while I'll go to drop B flat. The tone on those things, because they are so heavy, is absolutely amazing. If you're gonna do a big change like that, if you're used to doing strings that might be a little heavier than standard or standard strings, you're gonna need to do a lot of adjustment on your neck, so make sure you know what you're doing. Now, on my other guitar, I actually use Ernie Ball Paradigms, the regular 10 to 46. I would use Paradigms on Sophia, but they are a little bit more, I think they're a little bit more expensive, I don't recall. And not only that, but strings that thick aren't gonna break. Oh, one really quick note about Sophia. So it has a P next to the 24 here, which is the, what do you call it, the G string. I actually swapped that one out because if I actually showed you what that looks like, it's literally like the frickin' like slit your throat wire. It's stupidly thick. It's not made to go through my guitar. I actually couldn't pull the string the whole way through the holes in the bridge just because it was so frickin' thick. So I swapped that out for a 21 gauge. How do I work on confidence for playing live? I practice all the time, but suck playing live. Playing live is a skill set in and of itself. Like, I was having this talk with someone the other day. There are guys who play in bands, who are lead singers in bands, but then they get up to sing karaoke and they suck. Vice versa, there are people who are amazing at karaoke, but then they try to sing with a band and they suck. It's all about your mental space building anxiety because you're not in the environment that you're used to, and that anxiety is making you suck. It's distracting you, it's keeping you from being focused. When you're on stage, there is, for lack of a better term, an energy that you get from your audience. The knowledge that all eyes are on you, the knowledge that you have this one moment to make it right. And that energy can be manifested inside of you as anxiety, Or once you get comfortable, it can actually become like a powerhouse energy that makes you perform even better. All I can tell you is, if you're not used to it, it's gonna take some practice for you to just get comfortable. My best advice is go and play some shows that are low risk. If you mess up these shows, you don't risk damaging your career. Go and just play a couple of those and try to get better. I'm bad at reading. Alright guys, that has been Ask a Music Snob. Thank you all to everyone who sent in these questions. Thank you very much for watching the video with me. You can follow me on Instagram, again, at Become the Night, and also on Facebook and Twitter. Please support me on Subscribestar. That is the only way I can keep making these videos for you guys. And I will see you in the next video. Rock on!